Welcome to church today. We are so excited to have you with us. You're joining us for part 4 of Proverbs This is the Way series. And if this is the last one that you're listening to, if this is the first one, or maybe it's just somewhere in the middle, I want you to know that there's something for you here today. Now, you might not recognize my face, but my name's Hannah and I'm one of the leaders in Birmingham. And I wanted you to know a little bit about me before I carry on. So I'm a doctor, and here's a picture of me working during COVID sometime. I'm not really sure why I took this picture, and clearly I'm wearing the mask quite badly. But I can understand some quite complicated things being a doctor. And yet if you ask any of my friends, there are so many simple things that I forget or just pass me by. I just miss them completely. So some of these examples: in my 20s, I learnt that a submarine, you know those boats that go underneath the water, a submarine's called a submarine because sub means under and marine means water. So they literally described what it was doing. In my 30s, I realised that the words frog spawn, which is the eggs that frogs lay, that turn into tadpoles and later mature into frogs themselves, is actually not called frog spawn, but frog spawn. I've said it wrong my entire life. About a month ago, my 3-year-old told me that I didn't have to remember the colours that mix together, that I could look at the rainbow and it would tell me. So if you look here on orange, you have the red and the yellow, and they can mix together to make the orange. And the green is next to the blue and the yellow, and so it makes green. But I was like, yeah, I guess, that does change things a little bit. But how about purple? That doesn't work. She's like, no, mummy, you just put the rainbow underneath again, and blue and red are next to it, and that's what makes purple. So it won't come as a surprise to you to learn that I didn't realise that this series was around a Star Wars gag. I thought it was, in fact, I don't even know what it was. I just thought it was a little toy that we'd made up. But for Star Wars, for me, was always a little bit too pew, 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 pew. Surprise, I'm your father, pew, 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 pew. But I know that some people love it, and everyone's got their own thing. Some of my best friends love Star Wars, and so there's got to be something in that. But whether you like Star Wars or you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, you're lucky, because this series isn't about Star Wars itself, but it's about a book in the Bible called Proverbs that's full of really practical wisdom for you guys to understand, to implement in your lives, and see you live a more fulfilled life. And so I thought I would kick off by giving you a few of my own Proverbs, a few kind of snippets of things that I've learned over summer, some things that I want to share with you that probably won't, but may come in handy for you. So the first one is this: if you go on a hike for 20k, make sure that you wear good footwear, or else you will get blisters. The second one is, if you're going camping with your young children and you're sleeping in a white tent, they will wake up at sunrise and you'll be yawning for the rest of the day. This is a picture of my 3-year-old. I'd like to point out this time of this is 4:50 a.m. and she looks so hyped to be camping. We were not so impressed. The final thing is that if you use an old life jacket for your 1-year-old, it's not going to perform in the way that you think it is. And so at that critical moment where she starts kind of leaning out, touching the water, wanting to explore more, and you grab the handle to pull her back up, it might be that handle detaches and your 1-year-old goes sailing down the river whilst your boat continues in the opposite direction. I want to show you a picture of her afterwards just to point out that she was fine. And this is the offending life jacket. This is a picture of the next day where we bought her a new life jacket, and she's happily back in the water. So don't worry, there were no children harmed in this. There are some things that I learned, right? So I learned to make sure that I'm prepared. So these fake proverbs aren't really going to help you much in life. There's not going to be many occurrences where you think, oh, I'm so glad that I've held on to that point. But Proverbs is about things that are going to make a difference every single day of your life. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about something that is going to be a game changer. It's going to change the way that your relationships are with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family, with the children that you interact with the people that serve you in a coffee shop, at supermarkets, with the people that you serve. It is going to make such a difference. Whoever you are and whatever your situation, this is relevant for you today. So I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but instead I'm going to keep you hanging on, because I think that the thing that I'm going to say is going to be so simple that you're going to think, I'm not sure if that's really relevant. I already do that, or isn't that a bit, I don't know, just a bit lame? And I want to encourage you that when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, I felt the same way. There was that kind of part of me that fell into that trap of thinking, this seems a bit just not enough, right? That you guys deserve more. And then when I really thought about it and I spent a lot of time working this over, I realized that this is the game-changing thing. That when we get stuck in the complicated and we forget the simple, we don't see things that are going to change our everyday life. And so come with me and I'll show you what we're going to talk about. So I want you guys to turn to Proverbs 3:3, and it says this: never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Tie them around your neck as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Now, if you're reading this in your own Bible, you might have a slightly different wording of that. So it might say, never let loyalty and love leave you. Now, the reason for that is that the word that this is translated from is the word chesed. And this word chesed is quite complicated. There's a lot of nuance around it. There's not a direct one-for-one translation. So it's a little bit like in Welsh, there's a word cwtch. That word is not, it's more than a hug, but it's not quite a cuddle. And we have the same with that when we translate from different languages. So in the original, when it was written in Hebrew, and we struggle to translate that exactly into English. And so some of the wording that you might have is any of these numbers of things. It might say mercy, it might say love. Some people even make up a word that says loving kindness. But today we want to focus on the word kind, because like I said at the beginning, we're keeping this really simple and really practical for you. It's the way that Proverbs intended it to be. And so that's what we're going to focus on. So today we're going to focus on kindness. Now I can hear that you're saying, seems a bit childish, right? I don't think that that's relevant. You got the same thoughts that I had earlier on. I want to talk you through this, okay? So the author of Proverbs, they knew that you were thinking this. And you know how I know? Let's look back at the original. So it says, never let them leave you. Look at this word leave. It says, never let it leave you. That means that you once had it, right? I'm sure that all of you, at some point when you were in primary school or little, if you didn't hear these words spoken to you, you must have heard them spoken to other people. Use your kind hands. Well done, that was so kind. Remember, use your kind words. Well done, everyone. That was very kind behaviour. Now, when we think of kindness, we might think of it being a little bit wet, maybe a little bit just sappy, right? We think about someone that might not really have their own opinions, that doesn't want to offend anyone. A little bit like this character here. They wear pastel clothes and they have a pastel life. I'm here to show you that we can unbox this word kindness. I'm here to show you that this kindness has power and this kindness is going to change things for you. So what is kindness? Kindness is practical compassion, expecting nothing in return. So let me read that again for you. It's practical compassion, expecting nothing in return. So how do we do that? What is that? So firstly, it's noticing. It's noticing and getting compassion in those moments. And secondly, it's acting. It's noticing the compassion and acting upon it, practically demonstrating those things. So let me take you through a few examples. It's a child in their classroom that notices that someone is feeling shy and acts by asking them if they want to play. It's a teenager at school that first notices that someone else in their class doesn't have a pen and acts by giving them one without a fuss. It's a colleague at work that notices that you've been on a difficult conversation and acts by bringing you a drink. It's a friend that notices that you're stressed out and acts by giving you grace when you've been speaking to them harshly. So we know what to do, and we know that we need to keep it simple, but we get stuck in the complicated, right? If we carry on reading this verse, it says, tie them around your neck as a reminder, write them deep within your heart. This is what we're called to do. We're called to act out the simple. Let's not get stuck in the complicated today. So some of us think that we might have graduated from kindness. We think that honour is more or less the same, right? It's just the adult word of saying it. It's the more mature version. Now, you're right, there is a similarity, but there's also a difference. Honour is about having an attitude towards someone, whereas kindness is about having humility. It's a bit more vulnerable. It's that taking that extra step towards doing something about it. Now, I want you guys to understand the importance of kindness and the difference that it can make. So I'm just going to read some statements out for you, and I want you to think about them. Why are you here? Oh, is that it? You're embarrassing to be seen with. I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful for that. You look amazing today. I wouldn't miss it. Now, I bet each one of you can think of situations where someone said something like that to you, and it's made a difference. And the reason that kindness makes a difference is because our words and actions are powerful. They change the way we feel. They change the way that we act. These things make a difference. And so we want to build people up. We don't want to cripple them and bring them down. And even the absence of kindness doesn't mean that it's a neutral thing. It can be a negative thing when there's just silence. Our kindness is important, and we get to play a role in building people up. If we read on in Proverbs 3 and 4, it says, "Then you will find favour with God and with people, and you'll earn a good reputation." Now, this tells us that God cares about people. God cares about those moments. It matters to him how people are treated. It matters to him when there is unjust treatment. And he shows favour upon you when you do the right thing. The same is true of people, that in general, when you treat them with kindness, they'll treat you with kindness back. Now, the thing is that we can all think of examples where we've shown people kindness and we haven't got that back. And Proverbs isn't a book of promises. It's a book of generalizations. It's a book that, all things being equal, when this happens, this is the most likely cause that will happen. The thing about this is that with God, you will always find favour. But with people, it's not always the same. And the Bible acknowledges this. There are wisdom books that come after Proverbs that go into the nuance of life. Proverbs knows that this isn't a direct one-for-one thing. But in general, when you show people kindness, they'll show kindness back to you, and it makes your life better. So how are we going to do this? I've got some practical steps for you today. So firstly, number one, your kindness has got to be genuine. We can all think of someone that is maybe a little bit slimy, a bit snivelly. They like get a bit kind of chummy with the parents or the grandparents, with the teachers, maybe with the boss at work. Now we know that when someone shows kindness in that way, it's not kindness really, is it? It's manipulative. Kindness is expecting nothing back. You can't show kindness and expect to have a gift back to you. Kindness is demonstrating a practical way of compassion and not getting anything back. Secondly, I want you guys to know that you have influence. I want you to consider that there are some people in your lives whose opinions matter more to you than others. This might be people that look up to you. This might be people that are dependent upon you. You need to remember that you have influence and you need to use it well. If you're Zeal age, this isn't irrelevant to you. This isn't dependent on your age. That your words and your actions matter to your parents. Your words and your actions matter to your friends. That during your teen years, it's the time where you're forming your opinions and your beliefs about yourself, about others, and about the world. And we want to be part of that informative process where we're feeding in that kindness, that we get to make a difference and influence the way that people think for the rest of their lives. Point number 3, take every opportunity. When we look at this verse, it says, never let it leave you. What that means is that we need to be ready for every opportunity. If you guys don't have a drinks limit, I encourage you set one. How are you going to notice those opportunities to be kind when you're feeling a bit tipsy or even tipsy plus? How are you going to notice those opportunities when you're a bit grumpy and you're not wanting to pull yourself out of it? How are you going to notice those opportunities when you're sleepy and just a bit tired and can't be bothered? You need to seize every opportunity, show kindness at every possibility, because that's what's going to make the difference. We want people to know that when you approach them, there's kindness coming and that they feel peaceful because of your presence. But that doesn't mean that we hide the truth. And we all know that there are conversations that we have to have that are difficult and a bit painful. And we're going to have to bring truth to people. The Bible acknowledges this. When the Bible talks about this word kindness that we've seen, it often comes alongside another word, the word truth. Kindness and truth can go together. It doesn't mean avoid those difficult conversations. What it means is think about beforehand how you can convey that message to people, how you can give the same information but with compassion. It's like if I crack an egg and the yolk and the white fall into the pan, or my 1-year-old comes along and she crushes the egg with her hand and the white and the yolk fall into the pan. The outcome's the same, but one's a lot messier and requires a lot more cleanup. My last point for you is, what about when you get it wrong? When there are situations where you have caused pain, when there are situations where people have been injured by the things or the words that you have done. It's a little bit like, imagine Esme and Leona. And so Leona's my 1-year-old and she comes crawling over to Esme. She's so excited. She's got a toy and she's showing it to her, waving it around, and it whacks Esme in the eye. Esme starts crying. She's saying, "Mommy, it hurts." Imagine if I turned to Esme and said, "Why are you crying? It was an accident. Just get over it. It's not a problem. It was done by accident." Whether we do things on purpose or whether we do things by accident, they still can leave a mark. And so the final point is, I want you to be quick to apologise. Be quick to apologise even if it's by accident. People don't need an explanation. People don't need explaining why something happened. That's not going to repair the damage. What people need is an apology. So what can kindness do? Kindness inspires people. Kindness makes a difference. And I want to tell you a story. It's one of my favourite stories of kindness, of the difference that it can make. And so in this story, I was at work one day and a farmer came into work. And if you know anything about farmers, they don't come into hospital. They'll treat themselves at home and they will make sure that they can do everything they can to avoid hospital. But in this situation, the farmer came in because he'd got up in that morning and he'd fallen to the floor and his wife wasn't able to pick him up again. So she'd called an ambulance had arrived, and the crew had decided that he looked too poorly to stay at home and had brought him into hospital. Now, by the time that he got to me, he wasn't really responding at all. And we quite quickly established that he had late-stage cancer and that it wasn't known about until this moment. We realised that he didn't have much longer to live. His wife took me to the side and said he would never want to die in a hospital. He'd want to be at home in a bed. Now, we had that opportunity, that moment. We'd already sorted all the complicated stuff. We'd sorted everything that we needed to from the medical side of things. But his wife asked for us to act in kindness. And so what I chose to do was to do everything that I could to get this guy home. I set off a cascade of events. We contacted the GP who was going to check in on him. We contacted district nurses. We got medicines to be delivered at home to treat him, to sort out the pain. We had ambulance drivers who signed waivers to say that they were happy to carry him up the stairs, which here in England is a big no-no. They're only allowed to bring them down the stairs because they might injure themselves. And they signed this thing to say that they were happy that if they got injured, it wouldn't be covered under their sick pay. There were so many people that came together to get this guy home. And I had contact from his wife a few weeks later, and she told me that on the way back, that ambulance took a longer route, and they went past the field that he'd bought as a young man. It was the first field that he had. It was the first part of the farm. It was the place where him and his wife had started their family. And as they passed this field, the ambulance driver, they stopped and they opened up the back doors. They pulled the trolley out and the man saw his field for the one last time. He held his wife's hand and he smiled. And that was the last response that she had from him. He died at home in his bed a few hours later. Now, try telling me that kindness didn't make a difference in that situation. We'd done everything that we were meant to. Would we have been bad doctors, bad nurses, bad ambulance crews, bad any healthcare professionals if we'd have treated him well and given him a bed in hospital? No, of course we wouldn't. But you know what? That kindness made a difference. That kindness gave that man dignity. That kindness gave the family a sense of peace. And that kindness made a difference. Now we are called to bring that kindness into the world. If you believe in God and you are here today and you are somewhere along that journey, you might have heard that Jesus once said that we're called to be the salt of the earth. That means that we're here to make life taste nicer. We're here to be a bit different, to make those hard moments just that little bit easier. When we act in kindness, this is the difference that we're going to see. If you're here today and you don't know God, or at least the idea of God that you had isn't something that I'm describing, I want to leave you with this. God describes himself as Yahweh, the Lord, God of compassion and mercy, slow to anger and filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. This unfailing love is that same word, chesed, that word kindness. We have a God that wants to show you kindness, that wants to show you practical compassion, expecting nothing back in return. He notices you and he's acting on your behalf. And I know that that is painful sometimes. I know that there are situations where you say, how can that be? There is not a God that can see what's going on. But I promise you that we have a God that notices you. He has compassion for you, and He wants to act on your behalf. We get to be that to people, that practical compassion for others. We get to make a difference in this world and see it be a better place. And so I just want to finish up today by saying, keep things simple. Never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Keep it round your neck as a reminder. Write it deep within your heart. We can make a difference through our kindness, and we can make this world a better place. If you don't know God, you don't know Jesus, I encourage you to speak to a leader, get in touch with us. We would love to speak to you about this God that wants to show kindness to you. And for the rest of us that do, I want you guys to know that your kindness makes a difference, and that God still shows kindness to you, and that He doesn't expect you to be giving out of nowhere. He wants you to know that He is with you and that He favours you. And so I'm going to hand over to our leaders in different locations, and thank you for joining us today.